My wife mocked me for working double shifts to buy her dream house, so I sold it without warning and left her to face reality. Alone, I'm a 33-year-old guy, and I've spent the last 5 years working myself into the ground to give my wife everything she ever wanted. I work at a metal fabrication plant. Long, grueling hours, double shifts, that leave my back screaming and my hands raw. The smell of burnt steel follows me home no matter how many showers I take. But every time I dragged myself through another night, I told myself it was worth it, that I was building something for us, for Claire. When we first got married, Claire used to bring me coffee at the workshop, smiling in that way that made the exhaustion disappear. She said she admired my dedication, that my work ethic made her feel safe. Back then, it wasn't about money or appearances. We dreamed small, a cozy home, weekend picnics, maybe a dog, simple, peaceful dreams. But somewhere along the line, something changed. Maybe it was her new job in marketing, suddenly surrounded by coworkers who drove sleek cars and talked about investments and vacations in Bali, or maybe it was the endless scroll of social media, showing her what perfect looked like. She started talking about image more than happiness, about how our apartment looked too basic, or how my work boots ruined our photos. I didn't mind her wanting nice things. I wanted that too. But what hurt was how her tone shifted when she talked about me. She used to call me her rock. Now it's you wouldn't understand. You're not in that world. I still kept pushing longer hours, more overtime, less rest, just to bring her closer to her dream. But lately, I've started to feel something I never expected from the woman I love most. It's like she's no longer proud of me. She's embarrassed by me. And that thought keeps me awake. Longer than any double shift ever could. When the bank finally called to say our mortgage was approved, I thought that was it, the finish line. I came home drenched in sweat from a double shift, holding the approval papers like a trophy. "Claire," I said, barely catching my breath, "we got it. We can finally start building our house." I expected her to jump into my arms like she used to. Instead, she just blinked at the paper and said, "Oh, in that neighborhood?" At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She sighed, muttering something about how it was a little far from the city and not exactly high-end. My smile faded. All those nights I'd worked until my fingers blistered, and this was her reaction. Still, I told myself she'd come around once she saw it. When we moved in, I was proud. The smell of new paint, the sound of our laughter echoing in empty rooms. It felt like hope. But Claire's excitement seemed forced. Within a week, she was ordering expensive decor, hiring an interior designer, talking about aesthetic consistency. Every purchase was for the image, the chandelier that looked good on camera, the white couch no one was allowed to sit on. She started posting everything online, our furniture, the lawn, even her morning coffee beside the new marble countertop. Every caption ended with #dreamhouse. And yet, every time I looked at her, I couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't happy. One evening, I caught her scrolling through another influencer's mansion tour. She turned to me and said softly, "Their place makes ours look small." I didn't answer. I just stared at the walls I'd bled for, wondering when our dream became her comparison. And that night, for the first time, I realized no matter how much I built, it might never be enough for her. It started small, little jabs she'd throw during dinner with her friends. The first time it happened, we were out celebrating one of her coworkers' birthdays. Claire laughed and said, "You know, Mark here works so much he barely knows what a weekend looks like." The table chuckled, and I forced a smile, pretending it didn't sting. But then she added, "At least someone's got to smell like sweat to pay the bills, right?" Everyone laughed harder. I laughed too, just enough to hide the lump forming in my throat. After that night, it became a pattern. She'd make jokes about my job whenever she wanted to seem witty or sophisticated. "Oh, my husband's basically married to his steel machine," she'd say. Or, "He's the reason our electricity bills always paid on time." Each time, people laughed, and I felt smaller at home. The silence grew heavier. She started eating dinner in front of the TV. We stopped talking about our days. She was always busy, always texting someone. When I asked who, she'd shrug and say, "Just my girls." "Don't be paranoid." One evening, I overheard her on a call in the kitchen. Her voice was light, playful, a tone I hadn't heard in months. "He's sweet, but, not exactly ambitious. He's content getting his hands dirty. I froze by the hallway, gripping the edge of the wall so tight my knuckles turned white. I didn't recognize the woman speaking, not the Claire I married. That night, lying beside her, I couldn't sleep. Her back was turned, her breathing calm. Mine, WASN, single quotes D, because for the first time, I started to wonder if the distance between us wasn't just emotional anymore. Maybe there was someone else standing in the space where love used to be. The house had become a showroom, not a home. Every inch of it gleamed with things we couldn't afford. Crystal vases, gold-edged mirrors, imported rugs. I'd come home from my double shifts, boots heavy with dust, and find another delivery at the door. A $1,000 coffee table, a set of designer lamps, a chandelier so massive I had to help the installers just to lift it. "Claire," I said one night, trying to keep my voice calm, "we can't keep spending like this. We just bought the house, we need to slow down." She barely looked up from her laptop. "You work all the time." "We're fine," she replied, her tone clipped, dismissive. I tried again. "I'm killing myself at work to keep up." "I thought this was about us, not," she cut me off. "You work so much, you don't even have time to enjoy it. Let me handle things my way." I stood there, staring at her, the glow of the screen reflecting in her eyes, cold and detached. It was like talking to a stranger. The woman who once held my hand during power outages now rolled her eyes when I tried to talk about budgeting. Then, late one evening, as I was putting away laundry, I noticed her phone lighting up on the nightstand. The name flashing across the screen stopped me cold. Eli, Realtor. At first I brushed it off. Maybe he was helping her with something for the house. But when I saw the same name again 2 nights later, and the little heart emoji next to it, something twisted in my gut. That night, I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me, wondering if the cracks in our marriage weren't just emotional anymore, and deep down, I knew I was about to find out. The name Eli Realtor kept echoing in my head like a warning bell I didn't want to hear. I told myself I was overreacting, that Claire just liked things perfect and maybe needed help with design upgrades. But the next few weeks proved otherwise. Her phone was suddenly glued to her hand. She'd turn the screen away when I walked into the room, or she'd laugh softly at messages and say, "It's work. Relax." Her girls' nights became more frequent, and she started dressing up more for them, heels, perfume, the kind she hadn't worn for me in months. One night, I got home earlier than usual. The house was dim except for the kitchen light. Claire stood by the counter, giggling into her phone. I stopped by the doorway and listened. "You're terrible," she said, her voice playful. "Stop, or I'll start thinking you'd make a better husband than mine." Something inside me cracked. I stepped back before she saw me, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst through my chest. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started watching patterns, receipts, texts. The small things she thought I wouldn't notice. Within a week, I found a new expense, a restaurant charge for 2. During one of her supposed girls' nights, then another, marked as a consultation meeting, and every one of them was near Eli's office. I remember sitting alone in our kitchen that night, surrounded by everything I'd worked for, the polished floors, the fancy furniture, the spotless walls, and realizing it all felt hollow. She wasn't just drifting away. She was scheming. And when I finally checked her email out of desperation, what I saw turned suspicion into betrayal. There was an email chain between her and Eli about selling our house, and my name wasn't mentioned anywhere. Must have read that email a dozen times, hoping I was wrong. Claire and Eli had been discussing selling our house, the one I nearly broke my body to afford without me even knowing. She'd attached floor plans, potential upgrades, even a listing draft. But the part that hit me hardest, she'd signed her name alone under property owner. I confronted her that night, voice trembling. "Why are you talking to a realtor about selling our house?" She didn't even flinch, just crossed her arms and said, "Relax. It's called refinancing, Mark. I'm exploring options," without telling me. I asked. She rolled her eyes. "You wouldn't understand. You're not exactly business-minded." The way she said it, like my hard work meant nothing, made my blood run cold. When she left for yoga class the next day, I drove straight to the bank. The woman at the counter checked my records, then frowned. "Your wife met with us last week," she said. "She asked about transferring the mortgage into her name only." That's when everything clicked. the expensive upgrades, the new social circle, the sudden secrecy. She wasn't just drifting away. She was preparing to walk away with the house, the money, everything. I left the bank with my hands shaking, sat in my car, and stared at my reflection in the windshield. The man staring back looked broken, but under that, something darker stirred calm, cold clarity. If she wanted to play smart, I'd be smarter. If she wanted control, I'd take it first. That night, while she scrolled through real estate listings in bed, I lay beside her in silence, planning my next move. She had no idea that the man she thought was too simple to fight back had just decided to end her little game permanently. From that moment on, every breath I took had purpose. I stopped reacting, stopped arguing, stopped showing her that I knew. Instead, I played dumb the loyal, clueless husband she thought she could outsmart. Every how was yoga, was laced with quiet calculation. Every smile hid a plan forming in the back of my mind. The first step was understanding what I still controlled. I met with an old friend, Ryan, who worked in real estate. I told him everything: the house, the mortgage, the deception. He leaned back, whistled low. "You're still on the deed, man. She can't do anything without your signature." That one line lit something inside me. So, while Claire spent her afternoons meeting designers, I started collecting documents, mortgage papers, bank statements, every receipt she'd carelessly left lying around. Ryan helped me discreetly start the selling process under my name. The house she thought she was stealing was already halfway out of her hands. At home, I kept up the act. When she bragged to her friends about her property value skyrocketing, I'd nod and smile. When she mocked my job, I bit my tongue, thinking of the signature waiting for my pen. Every insult became fuel. Every lie she told became another nail in the coffin she was building for herself. One night, while she was laughing on the phone in the next room, I sat at the kitchen table, signing the final set of documents. My hands were steady. The pen glided smoothly across the paper, cleaner than I, expected for something that felt like revenge. I didn't sell it for profit. I sold it for peace, and as I sealed the envelope, I whispered to myself, "You wanted a new life, Claire. Let's see how you handle it when the old one's gone." The sale went through faster than I expected. Within a few weeks, everything was finalized: paperwork, escrow, signatures. I'd done it all quietly, methodically, while Claire floated around the house, blissfully unaware that her empire of appearances was already collapsing. Then came the night of her big party, the one she'd been planning for months. She called it a home celebration, invited all her coworkers, even Eli. I almost laughed at the irony. The house was no longer hers, and soon it wouldn't even be mine. I stood in the corner that evening watching her sparkle. The chandelier lights bounced off her sequined dress as she told story after story about how hard they'd worked to buy this place. She'd built her identity around this house: the marble counters, the pool, the luxury, but not around us. I was just a prop. When her boss praised the decor, she smiled and said, "Oh, Mark had nothing to do with this. He just signs the checks." Everyone laughed. I forced a grin, my jaw tight enough to ache. Later, when the guests were gone and the air still smelled like perfume and champagne, I tried to talk to her. "Do you even care about us anymore?" I asked quietly. She didn't look up from her phone. "Mark, Don T-Start, you always make everything so heavy." That broke me. I walked into the empty guest room that night, the one she said she wanted to turn into a content space, and sat on the cold floor. I looked around at the walls I'd painted, the furniture I'd carried, the future I'd built, and for the first time, I realized the truth. I'd been killing myself to build a dream for someone who never planned to live in it with me. That night, I didn't feel angry. I just felt empty, completely, utterly empty. A week after the party, the final notice came through. The sale was officially complete. The new owners would be moving in soon. Everything was done, signed, and sealed. Claire had no idea her entire world was already slipping through her manicured fingers. I started packing quietly. My clothes, my personal tools, a few keepsakes from my dad, nothing more. I didn't touch her things. I wanted her to walk in and see everything still there, still perfect, still hers, until the truth hit. That morning, I left an envelope on the kitchen counter, the sale confirmation, and the closing statement. Then I sat at the dining table waiting. When she came downstairs in her silk robe, coffee in hand. I could almost feel the storm brewing before it hit. She scanned the papers, and her face drained of color. "What? What is this?" "It's what you wanted," I said quietly. "You said you were thinking of selling the house. I went ahead and made it happen." Her voice cracked. "Mark, you can't just. This is my home." "Our home," I corrected, standing up, or at least it was. She started pacing, tears of anger glistening. "You're insane. Do you have any idea what you've done? My friends, my job, my reputation." I almost laughed. "You mean the house you mocked me for building? The one you planned to sell behind my back?" "Yeah, I sold it. So you can finally see what it's like to rebuild from nothing." She lunged forward, trying to snatch the papers, but I stepped back. "Don't bother," I said. "The deal's closed. They'll be here Monday, for the first time in years." She didn't have a comeback. She just stood there, shaking, her world collapsing around her. And in that silence, that heavy, final silence, I realized revenge didn't always need shouting. Sometimes it just needed peace. The next few days were chaos. Claire called everyone, the realtor, the bank, even my friend Ryan, demanding they undo the sale. But it was too late. Every document was finalized. Every cent transferred. Her voice turned from fury to desperation. I watched from a distance, detached, like a man observing a storm he'd already prepared for. When the moving trucks arrived, she refused to help. She sat on the front porch, arms crossed, muttering curses under her breath. Her friends didn't show up, not one of them. I guess humiliation spreads faster than sympathy. The neighbors watched quietly as we packed up years of memories into cardboard boxes. When the last box hit the truck bed, she turned to me, her voice breaking. "You ruined my life." I looked at her for a long moment. "No, Claire. I just stopped ruining mine." She didn't respond, just stared, eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, I saw fear behind her anger. Not fear of me, but of reality. The life she'd built on appearances was gone, and there was nothing left to hide behind. She moved into her friend's apartment that night. I didn't ask where. I just handed her a small envelope, her half of the sale. "You'll need this," I said. She took it, trembling, pride swallowed by necessity. After she left, I stood alone in the empty house. The walls echoed with memories, laughter, arguments, dreams, decay. The air was heavy, but still peaceful. When I closed the door for the last time, I didn't feel triumphant, just free. I didn't know where I was heading next, but for the first time in years, I wasn't chasing her approval or anyone's validation. I was finally walking away, but from the version of myself that built it for someone who never looked back. Months passed. The noise that once filled my life, Claire's constant demands, the parties, the tension, was replaced by silence. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment near the outskirts of town. The walls were thin, the furniture secondhand, but for the first time, I could breathe. I woke up without dread gnawing at my chest. I came home to peace instead of performance. Work felt different too. I wasn't working double shifts anymore, not because I was lazy, but because I didn't have to prove anything. I stopped chasing exhaustion as proof of love. My coworkers noticed the change, the way I smiled more, the way I didn't rush out every night. I'd traded luxury for sanity, and I didn't regret it for a second. Then, one afternoon, Ryan called. "You won't believe this," he said. "Your ex tried to list another house with Eli. Guess what? He dumped her once he found out she didn't own anything." I didn't even feel joy, just quiet irony. The same man she'd been flirting with for status walked away the moment she lost it. Karma had done its work without me lifting a finger. A week later, Claire texted me for the first time in months. "I miss us. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "There is no us anymore, Claire. I hope you find what you're looking for. No anger, no pain, just truth." That night, I sat on my small balcony, drinking cheap coffee, watching the sunset bleed into the horizon. It wasn't the life I thought I'd have, but it was real, and it was mine. For the first time, I didn't feel like the man who lost everything. I felt like the man who finally stopped losing himself a few months later. I found myself driving past the old neighborhood. It wasn't planned. I'd been on my way to a delivery site for work and took a wrong turn. The moment I saw the familiar street, my chest tightened. There it was, our old house. Only it wasn't ours anymore. The fence had been repainted white, the lawn greener than I'd ever managed to keep it. Through the window, I saw a family sitting around the dining table. A father, a mother, two little kids laughing as they passed food around. I parked for a moment across the street, watching quietly. There was no bitterness, no anger, just a strange, calm gratitude. That house was finally filled with what I had dreamed it would hold: love, laughter, warmth, even if it wasn't mine anymore. I thought about Claire. I'd heard she moved to a smaller apartment near the city, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I didn't hate her. Truthfully, I pitied her, not because she lost the house, but because she never understood that no amount of marble countertops or designer furniture could replace genuine love. I rolled down my window, letting the evening air hit my face, and smiled. "You did good," I whispered to myself. Not for her, not even for revenge, but for finally choosing peace. I wasn't running from the past anymore. I was just moving forward, one quiet, steady mile at a time. And as the road stretched ahead, I realized something that hit deeper than revenge ever could. I didn't sell the house out of spite. I sold it to buy back my freedom. The house may have been her dream, but letting it go was mine.